Good morning. Welcome for our first day of the Singapore FinTech Festival. I'm Marion, and today we're going to have another session. So we have been talking a lot about FinTech, technology and financial services, how this technology is transforming the financial services. Again, today, another session with, I have two guests with me. So we have Kartik Ramamurthy. Hi, Kartik. How are you?
Not bad, Marian. Thank you. Thank you for calling me over here.
And then we have Andre Bosaru. So I didn't mention Kartik is from Standard Chartered, and Andre is from Refinitiv London Stock Exchange Group. Hi, Andre. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Great. So as we find out, probably if it's not the first session that you watching from Standard Chartered and LSEG Ventures, we had I don't know how many hours of podcast, but we covered different type of technology and we covered different project and partnership. And here again, it's another opportunity to share one of the partnership we have with Refinitiv and how we work together in a particular context, I should say. But we're going to have time to deep dive into the partnership and the level of engagement and what does it mean in terms of a deliverable. Maybe I'd like we spend a little bit of time with our guests to know a little bit more what they do. I see Andre just in front of me. So Andre, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit more about you, what you do in life, a little bit the background.
So hi, everyone. So I'm Andre Bosaru. I work for Refinitiv. Not so long ago, still known as Thomson Reuters. So Refinitiv has recently joined the London Stock Exchange group. I'm part of the data and analytics division of LSEG. So I'm a technologist. My background is technology. I work very closely in supporting our financial clients in, I would say, designing and building complex solutions. And I would say, in line with I think the discussions this week, in the last few years, I've been heavily involved working with innovation teams in our clients, or I would say data science teams. Usually, so helping design new solutions around that leverage data and data models that we're going to talk about in more detail later today.
Good, thank you. What about you, Kartik? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Thank you. Very good morning and good evening where you're from. So I work, as Marian said, I work at Standard Chartered. I head the product control and valuation control team here in Bangalore. So the team as such is responsible for the design and operation of a robust control environment, mainly to do with the financial processes. And this is to ensure integrity, valuation, and accuracy of books and records. So that's what the function does. In short, if I were to put it in a simple layman's word, it is calculation of daily profit and loss, P&L, reporting of that, and the different balance sheet controls that we have to do to ensure the bank's books and records are same, right? That's on the product control side of things. As to my background, I started in technology. I'm a quant in my previous work experiences, and right now I am in a function. I run a function which reports into finance, which is the GCFO function of Standard Chartered. That's me in brief.
Okay, thank you. So let's start deep diving a little bit about the partnership and what does it mean and what is specifically the use case that you have been involved together. But actually, I should say three of us, because I have also my part of accountability, maybe at the beginning of the journey. So as probably a lot of people may suspect, let's say this way, Refinitiv is one of Standard Chartered partner for I think for a while. Here what we wanted to share with the audience is, I would say, a new type of engagement or a new type of partnership that we have created now something like 4 years back. I would say not that particular engagement, but let's say this new type of model. And it's by using one of the a platform that we have created and developed on our own, because nothing was really available as we wanted on the market. And so that platform is SC Ventures FinTech Bridge. And with the purpose is to connect startup companies, developer, investors, accelerator, et cetera, to people from the bank, but also our corporate clients. And in that context, I think, if I remember well, we posted a problem statement. So the idea or the purpose of the platform was, and still, to share some of the problem statements. So here it was one of the problem statements from FM, for financial market, from Standard Chartered. And the idea was that, well, we post it because we want to build new type of partnership. We want to solve quickly a problem statement, help to build some particular model. And I think you will explain a little bit more. And we are looking for, so there was a little bit like we call open call to find new partners to solve that problem. And Refinitiv was one of them who have seen it and apply. And actually, I should say won, because it's a kind of mini competition. Maybe Andre or maybe Andre, you want to start on the problem statement and give a little bit more details about the problem statement itself and how have you heard about it?
I'll let Karthik start on the problem statement, because they raised it. I can comment on how we came to
Sure.
work together.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Andre, thank you. So, I mean, as I said, the team that I run, one of the core responsibilities of the team is daily P&L reporting. And what it means is, when we are looking at the profit and losses of mainly the financial market books, which is in other words, capital market books within Standard Chartered. So along with running, reporting the profit and loss, we also need to explain why a particular business made money or lost money. And given, as I said, this is to do with financial markets, and so obviously the entire profit and loss calculation and the explanatory would be deemed or would be corroborated with a market event, a market move, if I may. So in other words, when we run our P&L, we need to give a P&L commentary, and the P&L commentary would be associated with a position that we run along with a market move. So say if I were having like 100 shares of IBM and IBM shares went up 1%, then I would be putting the commentary based on, what percentage the share went up and what is my position. So this has historically been the case, and that's been what product control's core function has been, which is P&L reporting and commentary. Now, we have always looked at, automating our, different processes. And one of the processes, which is the P&L commentary, is not as straightforward as using a VBA script or, something in Python or R that I could just straight away take and, automate. So what we needed was some kind of a machine learning. So we needed somebody to go pull out the different market moves, market data, economic events, macroeconomic, events, and then put that in a consumable format for us. And that's where Refinitiv came in. So I'll quickly pass it on to Andre. The problem statement being, I need a commentary, right?
You summarized it very well. I could see that you guys came up with the problem statement. So so this is where we came in. So we saw going back to where the project started, we saw the problem statement on the FinTech Bridge that was sometime last year. And based on that, so actually around in parallel to that time, Refinitiv had been working together with our back then Refinitiv Labs. We had a prototype of a project that we had designed and built internally, which was specifically on equities, and I'll come back to that in a second, where we were doing exactly something similar to what Kartik and his team was looking to have, which is we were trying to analyze the market and analyze news and other events in the market and correlate those to price movements for equities. So the discussion with SEB started, and I think Marian, you were involved in that, was we gave a presentation of that MVP that we had built internally, and then understanding that the requirement from SEB was on other asset classes, specifically FX was one of them, and not necessarily the only one. So that's where the discussion started. Looking at the problem statement, and of course, given the background of Refinitiv, we have a huge amount of data. We work with our strategic partner, Reuters, so we have access to a very large number of news sources in terms of data sets and data. So of course, real-time prices on the different asset classes. So it kind of like looking at it, we said, okay, we have the capabilities of building something like this. We can prove that we have built it for something which was coming close to what SEB product control was looking for. So it kind of for us made like an obvious choice for us to put our hand up and say we would like to work with the product control team and have this rapid engagement on coming up with a solution.
Yeah, and I think I can also talk about this particular case because I mean I was involved in the evaluation process too, and I think the reason why we were using SE Ventures FinTech Bridge platform was because that was a very particular, I mean, it could look like, okay, it's just a model and a bunch of data, but actually the complexity was to find out vendor or provider who could have both capabilities, which is not always the case. You may have people who have AI capabilities, or you will have dataset provider, but it's more difficult to find out a vendor or provider that will have both. And I think the big plus was, and as you mentioned, that the purpose of the platform is to go fast, and we want to find out very quickly what is the best solution in a very short period of time, because the idea is really to accelerate. So having said that, the fact that, I mean, quickly that was obvious that Refinitiv solution was the best option, and we were ready to work together. But yes, and the fact that you have already, let's say, MVP or an experience on that, it make a big difference.
Yeah, so we had the skeleton of it, I would say. We had also, so in our labs teams, but also I would say throughout the organization, we have seen in the last few years more and more focus coming from what I would say unstructured data. So unstructured data, I would say sentiment analysis, so understanding what the analysts are saying or what the journalists are saying, or in the end what the markets understand and explain what the markets are gonna do and provide that information quickly enough. So I think as you said, we were, and by the way, there were, and we'll get more in detail on that. There were a number of capabilities that we didn't have, and that we were ready to develop and work together with SEB to come up with them. Sentiment analysis on very specific currency moves. There was something that we knew that we would have to develop, or something like summarization on unstructured text, which would lead to that commentary that Kartik was talking about.
So I think it's also probably also interesting for the audience, and also maybe I'm thinking about potentially other maybe, okay, let's say startup or other provider who maybe would like to be involved in future open core challenges on that platform. I think that was just the beginning of the journey, if I have to say this way, because it was about connecting the right people together. Can you tell us a little bit more the engagement itself? I mean, once you have decided that you're going to work together, can you tell us a little bit about how it worked once you started to work with FM team? Or maybe on the FM side, I don't know, who wants to start first?
I'll kick off. I'll take something that Andrea said, right, which is very critical, right? And then I'll get on to your question. Refinitiv, I mean, as I said, the problem statement was market commentary, and it was not as straightforward as that me and Andrea, and obviously Marion, you're also quite glued into this, that we are saying, right? So it was about getting data. One is data, which is your different market moves. The second bit is your actual commentary, which is your market events. So there are many, options out there, like if I pick up a Google search, it is more of an extraction of market news. I say what happened in, say, FOMC, what happened with RBA, which is Reserve Bank of Australia, right? I would just get extraction of news. What we were looking for a solution, which Refinitiv is trying to solve for, is as opposed to just mere extraction, I need an efficient abstraction. What do I mean by that? I need the data that moved, say an yield curve, a rate that moved up and down on the back of a market event, which could be a Reserve Bank of Australia saying, inflation is not so high or it's so high, so on and so forth. So that's the background. Now, very quickly taking a segue there and coming into our engagement. So when the problem statement was made along the lines of what I said just now, where I said that we need data, and we also need a text that corroborates the data, which corroborates the market move from whatever has happened in the market. I think Refinitiv had both the information, right? Because you have data historically, Refinitiv, I think I and Andrea were speaking a few days back as well. In my first shop that I worked, I used RIC, a code that is quite popular, which is all about data. And he spoke about equity being one of the things that they were trying to solve for. So data is that. The second bit is market news. So having worked on the trading floor for good 17 odd years, I've used Refinitiv, Bloomberg, Reuters historically, Bloomberg, and so on, other providers of market news or market events, right? So definitely Refinitiv was standing out there as well. So they had both. All we had to do is marry the two together and come up with something that was just not, pulling out, searching out data, but putting it in a very concise way with the move that has happened along with the commentary. And this is very pertinent to financial markets, or should I say, what historically is known as a trading business, right? Where you do trading on a day-to-day basis and you do a mark-to-market, and hence commentary comes in. So we have had engagements right just before summer, and I'll take a pause there and pass it on to Andrea, where he can talk a little on how we were engaged closely and how we try to develop a proof of concept and the kind of interactions we had. And I'll pitch in wherever.
So thank you, Karthik. So yes, Marion, so to your question, I think once the problem statement was known, and as Karthik was saying, we identified some of the ingredients, and I would say some of the ingredients just because sometimes we will start somewhere, and then potentially it could be we started with news, but then it could be economic events. So I would say bringing other further data sources to the process. So once we identified the different data set that would be needed and the different capabilities that we would have to develop, we went into this I would say rapid development process where we said, okay, let's identify the minimum viable product together with the team. We had a number of iterations where we came up with some mock-up screens where we showed, okay, this is how it's gonna look like. I think along the way there were a couple of I would say refactoring and redefinition of API versus UI, how the UI would look, but make sure that we can deliver the output also as an API, so that the bank can integrate this into other further internal systems potentially in the future. And then we went into internally on our side, bringing together the relevant team and pretty much getting started on the work. As I said, we have a lot of experience in the team on, we already had a good start on some of the capabilities, but some of the other capabilities, and especially when it comes to building it specifically on, in this case, it was currency and currency movement pairs, currency pairs movements. There was a lot of, I would say, machine learning specific work and tagging data tagging that was needed. And then on one side, I would say we had, and we still have, because the work is ongoing. We have, I'd say, an internal regular meeting where we bring together the different development teams and data science teams working on this, and then regularly going back to Kartik and his team and providing the feedback and adapting to the feedback that we get from them. I think I would just say, and as everyone, so COVID had a direct impact on like the timelines of this, and there was, I'd say, some inherent delay in the project. But I think overall so now we're in a position where we have, I'd say, a working prototype that has to be further validated, and if I can say, I think the issue that we had, and we see this very often in this type of projects, is finding I'd say the right needle in the haystack, and we have a lot of data, but getting to that point where we marry that specific requirement, in this case coming from the product control team, to say, okay, this is, so being able to pinpoint the data in an of course automated manner, that's the crux of it. And I think we're making good progress. In the meantime, I think we started with FX, but now we're looking at other asset classes. We also have a different approach, and I'll let Kartik comment on that, on where we're looking at an entire country and trying to understand, okay, what happened in that specific country that could explain some of the events that or some of the those how the P&L has evolved in that specific country, and that requires slightly different skill sets, different classes of data. So I'd say overall, this is I mean, it's been a very intense partnership and collaboration with the product control team, and I think at the moment we're on the right track.
Good. Kartik, you want to explain maybe a little bit of the scope and the benefit about this partnership?
Absolutely. So Andrea mentioned about FX being the first asset class that we picked. So we picked that as a proof of concept, right? And it's going on pretty well. So what's the scope? The scope is, as I mentioned, we support financial markets and treasury. So treasury is not so much a mark-to-market business, but financial markets is a mark-to-market. I'm looking at the P&L on a daily basis, right? And the markets move as quickly as anyone can imagine. So the scope expands from FX to interest rate to commodities, and needless to say, it also involves the different volatilities, right? Because any kind of derivative that's getting traded within the bank needs a P&L explain, a P&L commentary, and that is the scope. So the scope covers pretty much all markets. The scope also covers, given the fact that Standard Chartered is quite exotic and quite niche when it comes to the markets that we operate in, which is our unique selling point, right? The markets that we operate in and the products that, the product suite that we have to offer in these markets, very unique. To that in place, we need some kind of what Andrea mentioned about country-related information, something that is happening, say, in the space of Nigeria, India, right? China, right? Recent market events happening in the China, especially with commercial real estate and the news that's coming out of late about, how some of these real estate firms have some kind of stake in the Chinese bank. Some of these are very critical market information that is important for a product controller to understand. Even though he's not a country risk specialist, he needs to be aware of what's happening in the country. So the scope moves on to the country space. So it's quite interesting times in the markets as we speak, coming out of a decade and a half of low interest rate environment. We have inflation at our doorstep. We have volatility, which is spiking through the roof. We have equities which have rallied. We have all the central banks holding on the tapering or having the hawkish mindset about increasing rates. These are very critical times from the market standpoint. So the scope expands all the way to this macroeconomic events, which something like a Refinitiv will help us, right? Now, as to the benefit, which is the second part of your question, right? The benefit is immense. Rather than a product controller searching out for the news, which I just mentioned, right? He has something that is put on his table or on an email or an API or whatever, the product that's delivered, but it's in a consumable format, i.e. he doesn't need to go search, understand the market news and relate it to a risk move, a risk factor move. He's got everything for him to relate to a P&L move. When I say a P&L move, the profit and loss that's happened on the day. So it makes his life easier and it gives him more time to analyze the data. So the benefit is immense. I mean, I can't speak about the benefits because it is so much that he would spend a lot of time analyzing the business and the risks within the books than just trying to search for the market news. So it's a massive save for us.
Yeah, save a lot of time and gain in efficiency, right?
Absolutely.
Good. So we spent some time talking about that particular use case, that it's for FM product control. But I'm just wondering, I'd like to hear your views about such engagement, or let's say this new type of engagement. What do you think about it? Where do you see the value? Maybe we can start with you, Andre. On your side, how do you see such engagement?
Thanks for the question. I think this is definitely not this was not the first time that we were engaging the bank in this way. I think if I look at the last, 2-3 years, and not only the engagement with SCB and SC Ventures, I think in general we see this. How do you bring together this? How do you create that ecosystem of having the right partners and the right capabilities and ingredients to solve a problem? I think we started talking about the fintech bridge. I think from our perspective as a data and data provider, solution provider, if you want, I think that's a critical piece in the puzzle, because it brings together and creates that marketplace to say, these are some of the data. These are some of the problems that are out there, and for us as London Stock Exchange, of course, we have a very wide coverage of data. So when it comes to, I think that's a good start for us, but it's not the only success factor. And I think bringing together, in this case, the product control team ourselves. In this case, it was just us. But in general, we see more and more of there's always there might be a missing piece of the puzzle. So how do you identify that? And very often in today's world, there's always a fintech organization somewhere that is probably doing something in that area, and they're very keen to work with us. And I mean, we're both Standard Chartered, Refinitiv, with very large organizations. I think bringing together and creating that viable environment where you have all the, in this case, a problem statement, the data sets that could solve this problem, and then everything that needs to happen behind it to create that solution. I think it's very important. And the faster you get to the point where this in a way builds on itself, the better for getting to that. I would say to getting to a solution, or at least to get to a conclusion, because the conclusion might be, you know what, we're not on the right path. We just need to take a different approach in solving this.
Yeah, and I think also what is interesting is that I mean, I've been running this platform for almost 4 years. I think what is interesting is that most of the time people think that it's an additional channel for, let's say, startup or any kind of partner that we don't know yet. Yes, but not only. What is quite interesting is Andrea and I, we know each other for a while, right? And actually, even if I know him, I will not automatically, maybe not all the time, thinking about, hey, taking my phone and call him and say, hey, there's maybe something for you, right? The other benefit of that platform is it's a fantastic opportunity for kind of summarizing and a little bit like a window display to list all the different opportunities. And like you said, it's about connecting the right people together so that we let's say, do business together. That's the idea underneath. But it's more and more, it's getting more and more important. Now, by the way, we have almost 2,000 members on that platform, and it's completely free. So it could be used for and by the way, if in the audience we have some of our corporate clients, they can use it also for their purpose. Same for other people from Standard Chartered. If they never use it, please go ahead. We are happy to help you to use it, because it's really accelerate the process, and we bring together different part to work together. So it's quite fruitful.
And if I may add on top of that, from our perspective as a data provider, oftentimes, and I've been working with clients in the industry for a while now, oftentimes I get in discussions and they say, we come to this like, oh, they're trying to solve a problem, and we think we can help them with what we do. And oftentimes I've been in discussion with say, oh, I didn't know that you guys were doing this or that. So I think from our perspective is also very interesting, because of course our business, and I'm speaking probably from the perspective of any of the fintechs out there or larger organizations like us, the business evolves and we go into new areas and in new, let's say, new domains. It's hard to keep up with all this information, and I think having access to this kind of system, where in the end allows to as well, on one side the bank saying okay, or corporates saying these are the problems that we're trying to solve, and for us the data providers to say these are the capabilities that we can help you with, and then bringing that together, I think is very powerful. Bringing it together in a short time. Yeah. And making those connections, I think that's very powerful. We do
believe in the community effect, or we can call that ecosystem effect. But yes, we do believe that by sharing with all these different members, that's how we're going to find out. So, and maybe there's sometimes solution we don't think about it, or there is other way to tackle some particular problems.
Yeah.
So and we use it for like I said, Standard Chartered team, like is in that case, but also for our ventures, and also we propose that to our corporate client, because we know they may have the same problem or problems to solve related to technology and innovation. Great.
I think it comes at a at the right time, if I may just add about chapter 3, and
Sure.
our bank stands on chapter 3, and one of it being new ways of working and technology, right? We've always, having been in banking for a good amount of time, I can always relate to technology being away from business. Today, the world has evolved to a stage where we need something that has our people who have the business acumen along with being technologically savvy. So automation, improvement, standardization is no more outside for an IT team to deal with. It's in the DNA of, say, the person who's within finance who's not a technology person. So fintech is, I would not even use the word next big thing because it's always been there, but it's going to a different level as we speak, right? And I think SE Ventures, Marion, you're doing a fantastic job, and thanks to Andrea for solving some of our problems or trying to solve some of our problems.
Yeah, I agree with you that one of the key trends is that people from business in general, whatever the business is, cannot ignore technology. And it's all about mixing business and technology. And we need to communicate on that so that we share what is possible, what we have done in the past, and this is currently what we are doing today. And I'm expecting that it will open new opportunities for both of you and also for SC Ventures, of course. I think we are fine for today. I don't know if there is any other comment from you, feedback, something that you would like to share with the audience about, I don't know, your experience or next step, or what you see related to the market, or what is next for in the context of your engagement, maybe?
The next is, as I said, the scope was, the proof of concept was just effects, which we started off with. So we have quite a lot of journey to cover, right? It's all the asset classes. But definitely, I think, I don't know if it's you or Andrea used the word ecosystem. The ecosystem needs to now be completely glued in, where you have, data providers, technology, solution architects who, provide solutions, working very closely with people whom we term business in the past, right? I would say the ecosystem is bigger now. So the word fintech is no more outside of anybody's know-how. It should be in everybody's book. It should be in everybody's daily, job that I do, because without that, it's not going to work. I'll stop there and pass it on to Andrea if he wants to add anything more.
Thank you, Karthik. I would only add that in Refinitiv, we've been running on what we call AI ML survey in the last 4 years, and I think every 1.5, 2 years. So it's been run now, I think 3 or 4 times, and it's interesting to see the evolution of what we call, so I won't say data science in financial institutions, but I'd say solving problem using data. So data-led problem solving. So you have data science, but you have, of course, data science teams. We have a lot of the teams in banks and financial institutions that are more and more looking at this, exactly like Karthik and the product control team. We were looking at the evolution of how much these teams have grown and how much their importance. And maybe the first time we ran it, it was like, oh, it's kind of like this funky team in one corner of the organization, and no one say, engineers, scientists, and not exactly in the middle of the business. Whereas now, 4.5 years later, and especially with what happened with, I would say, COVID. It's an unfortunate event, but this, in a way, fast-tracked a lot of the things and a lot of the processes that were taking place in these organizations. Today, these teams are so this combination between business, technology, and how to solve problems using data these are the core strategy in this institutions. Of course, we as Refinitiv, we're doing our part to support and help solve those problems using AI and ML. I mentioned it earlier. Definitely, you see this joining forces between data that resides in the banks, and I think all the financial institutions have huge amounts of very useful information that is not always and data that is not always fully leveraged. Bringing that all together with data coming from external providers like us or others, I think that creates a very, very powerful combination that can generate new insights into that data and solve problems like the one we were trying to do with the product control team.
And I'm sure this is probably the beginning of the journey. We still have a lot of use cases, problem statement to use with the help of data and different model. Thank you. I think we're almost, yes, we are now down for this session today. Really appreciate your time, your energy. So thank you, Kartik. Thank you, Andre, for your time and sharing your experiences related to that particular case with the FinTech Bridge platform. Maybe as the closing remark, maybe to explain, in case people don't know, all our sessions are recorded. So this session also will be recorded, has been recorded actually, and will be available on our SE Ventures FinTech Bridge platform, because it's also about sharing best practices, use cases, etc. And so all the different episodes from this Singapore FinTech Festival will be shared there in a few hours' time. And yes, I'm expecting to see more people on the SE Ventures FinTech Bridge platform to maybe solve other problem statement from product control or other team from the bank or some of the ventures, some corporate clients. So please connect there. We're going to share all the details online. And I'm sure Refinitiv, Andre, maybe you're going to find out another problem statement soon on the platform.
Looking forward.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks
Have a nice
for the opportunity.
day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.